There's a pretty one, Ulysses. There it is.
Hello BookTube, I'm Sean the Book Maniac. Welcome back to my channel. I should have been wearing one of my green shirts for this. I'm here with my Irish Readathon TBR. The Irish Readathon is put on this year by, I think it's the same organizers year to year. Aoife of Words and Clover, Elaine Howland, and Leanne Rose. I will put links to their announcement videos in the show notes, and they've got a bunch of fun stuff organized, some reading challenges and so on. I won't be taking part myself, but you should check those out. But I am just so stoked to hone in on Irish Lit in March. It's for the entire month of March, which is, if you're going to do Irish Lit, you need at least a month. I think you really need, 6 months. A few days ago, I put up a video of a Zoom chat that I did with two Irish novelists, Covery Madavan and Ronan Hession, and they each gave 6 recommendations for Irish Lit. So please check those out. There's going to be a little bit of crossover between what they recommended and what showed up on my TBR. But my TBR had already been pretty set before I had that conversation with them. But you just wait until Irish Readathon 2022. Oh my goodness. They gave some great suggestions. So I will put a link to that Zoom chat in the show notes. Please be sure to check out. Even if you only have time to look at the list of books, but you'd be cheating yourself out of a wonderful experience hearing these two fabulous Irish writers comparing notes on their favorite Irish novels and whatnot. I have kind of made a New Year's resolution to pare down how many books I read at one time, and concomitantly how many books I allow myself to read from a readathon. So I don't allow myself to read more than 6 books at a time, and if you know anything about my reading style, that is a severe retrenchment, people. And no more than 6 books for any readathon, just so that I can also read other stuff, because I tend to obsess, and then stuff that doesn't fit any particular readathon just, collects dust. And enough about that. So here are 6 books that I plan to get to for the Irish Readathon, and I will spend a lot less time on my backups, my pile of possibilities, because I do tend to bail every so often, that I might get to, or that you might want to check out for your own reading pleasure. So let's get started. First, I have 2 buddy reads scheduled for the Irish Readathon. The first is A Ghost in the Throat by Doreen na Grifa. And yes, I have checked how to pronounce it. I will put a link to her sitting in her car, talking about her book, pronouncing her own name, because boy, I would have never got that. Doreen na Grifa. And this is published, I think, last year, 2020. Got lots of awards and lots of buzz. The gorgeous cover. And I'm a little bit scared about it because she's a poet. And this is poetry, essay, and autofiction mixed together. And I don't typically do well with mixed media books. So I told Doris, this is the buddy read with Doris of Aldi Books, and I told Doris, you have to really hold my hand, because she's really excited about that aspect of it, but I've heard really good things. So there's 2 storylines. One is back in the 1700s when an Irish noblewoman discovers her husband has been murdered, and what does she do? According to the back cover, she drinks his blood and then writes a really great poem, as you do. And then in the present day story, a young mother narrowly escapes tragedy and finds the poem and becomes obsessed. Oh, I'm actually relieved. I think I misspoke when I said that it was a mix of poetry. The back just says essay and autofiction. Because now that I flipped through it for the first time, it is very prosy. So that makes me feel much more comfortable. I can't wait to give it a try. And I actually misspoke as well, because I have 3 buddy reads, not 2. Boy, I'm not very organized. But let's make up for that by this fabulous green cover. Mary Costello's The River Capture. This is a buddy read that I'll be doing, my very first buddy read with Jacqueline, who is a commenter on all of our channels, a voracious reader in Ireland. And we are buddy reading this novel, which I've had on my shelf for quite a while. It was published a couple of years ago. And the protagonist leaves Dublin to live on his family's farm on the bend of the River Sulaine, if I'm pronouncing that river's name correctly. I have not read anything by Mary Costello. That fabulous cover. Also, for the Irish Readathon, I will be buddy reading the first volume of Edna O'Brien's Country Girls trilogy called The Country Girls, the first volume. And I'll be reading it with Sonia of An Enthusiastic Reader. Sonia and I read a large collection of O'Brien's collected fiction called A Fanatic Heart that we both absolutely loved. And so this is continuing our new Edna O'Brien obsession with her. I think it was her very first novel. Caused all kinds of sensation. She had to leave Ireland because of the scandal. So I'm here for that. So 3 more that I'm planning definitely to get to. One is one of the novels that both Covery and Ronan were so enthusiastic about. Ronan Hession had tweeted about this novel some months ago, so I had acquired it in ebook format. The physical book was just out of my price range, but the ebook was quite affordable, and that's Una by Alice Lyons. And it is, you should go and check out, because they talk about it for a good 5 minutes. The protagonist, Una, is the child of Irish immigrants to New Jersey in America, and she is an artist. And I don't think that it's a plot-driven novel, and I certainly don't need to know any more than that. Apparently just gorgeously written, and it's set quite recently in the era of the Celtic Tiger, which you probably know more about what that means than I do. I have a little bit of an idea. And it's one of those constrained writing novels. Other than the title and one very short chapter, she does not allow herself to use the letter O. Lipogram or lipogram, I'm not sure how to pronounce it. And I guess it's common that when authors compose lipogram novels or works of fiction that it's either the letter E or O that they can't use. That, to me, sounds gimmicky, but boy, I am sold on it from how enthusiastic Covery and Ronan were about it. I can't wait to give it a try. Sounds like the writing is just gorgeous and a lot about the process of making art, which sounds pretty interesting too. And everybody and their dog was reading Anne Enright's, what is it called? The Actress, 2020. Lots of people loved it. I'm a little put off because I don't like reading fiction about actors. I just, it's a turnoff. But I am going to read her penultimate novel, if I can believe what Wikipedia tells me, her 2015 novel, The Green Road, which I have as an ebook, and I can't wait because it will be my first anything by Anne Enright. It's her 6th novel. And it's a family story, the Madigan family, 4 children and their mother. The Telegraph called it virtuosic. I don't need to know any more than that. I've heard really good things about it, and that is on my Irish Readathon TBR. And finally, this is a kind of a hot off the press, as only Sean the Book Maniac would consider a book to be hot off the press. It's a new translation of a 1940 novel written in Irish, not in English, and newly translated for the first time. And that is This Road of Mine by, and I've got the pronunciation, I just gotta look it up again, by Shosam Macgriana. And I've done a lot of research on how you pronounce that first name. Shosam. Shosam, I guess is okay, but the one that I heard that got the most upvotes on it was Shosam. Shosam Macgriana. Originally published in Irish in 1940 and first translated in 2020. It is a forgotten classic. I think it's kind of autofiction because the protagonist is Macgriana, a writer who prefers the freedom of the open road, and he gives up his day job translating books into Irish, and it's set in the early years of the Irish Free State. I don't need to know any more. That just sounds absolutely fascinating, and it's kind of a very new book. I would be shocked if I was not the very first booktuber to read it, but I shouldn't be so audacious as to make that claim, but I will be one of the first. Okay, so those are the 6. I have a whole bunch of other books that will be backups, and I'm just going to show them to you and mention them very briefly, and if you want to do more research, please do, but I don't want to make this a long TBR video, because probably what I've told you about is what I'm going to read. 2 more that Covery and Ronan talked about. One that Ronan had raved about in his first appearance on my channel 6 months ago or something, so I ordered a copy based on that recommendation. Big Girl, Small Town by Michelle Gallen. And I'm not going to say anything more about it. Please go check out what Ronan said in the video that I put up last week. I'm probably not going to get to it for the Irish Readathon, but, you know, this year I hope to get to it. And similarly, I was shocked that this collection of flash fiction Some Days Are Better Than Ours by Barbara Beyer was available to me from a book website that I won't mention the name of because it's not meant for polite company here in Tokyo. So I got it delivered the next day. I got it yesterday, and it's flash fiction and very short. So actually, I think this one would easily fit in around the edges. So there's a pretty good chance I might get to this one during March. But if not, soon thereafter. Please refer to Ronan's high praise for this in that other video. I have John McGairn's famous memoir, All Will Be Well. My curiosity about this was first piqued by Ian Lee's collection of autobiographical essays, Dear Friend, From My Life I Write to You in Your Life. I think that's the exact title, but I may have switched it around. Where she has a chapter about this book, and I ordered it because of that and still haven't got to it. So that is a book that I must read at some point. I have Sarah Baum's... Is it her first novel? No. Her second novel, A Line Made by Walking. I have a gorgeous hardcover edition of that, but it's too chunky. But I should get to that someday. But even though I haven't read A Line Made by Walking, and I've heard somewhat mixed reviews of that, I've heard nothing but praise for her third, what is it? I guess a novella, maybe. Handiwork by Sarah Baum. And I know Ronan loved it, and I picked it up because of that, but... might get to it. It's a short one. The poet Evan Boland died in 2020, didn't she? 2019? I studied her at university decades ago and got a short collection of her poetry that I read and loved last year. And that made me special order her memoir, A Journey with Two Maps, Becoming a Woman Poet. A collection of essays about other women poets, so it's not maybe so specifically Irish in focus. And I'm not a big poetry reader, but if you only read one poet, it should be Evan Boland. And so I want to know more about what makes her poetic mind tick. Handheld Press is an interesting press, and they reprint older fiction. And kind of randomly, I bought everything that was affordable off a certain website. And one of them was this one. Gerald O'Donovan's Vocations was published in 1921, set in a small town in late Victorian Ireland. A serious indictment of treating young women like commodities in the marriage market or the market in nuns. Hello, that sounds fascinating. This is another Blame It on Ronan purchase. The Napoleons by Craig Jordan Baker. This is kind of a crazy one. This is his debut. And one of the... Oh, it's actually Ronan Hession's blurb. So I don't believe in blurbs, but if it's a blurb from Ronan, or a writer that I know, wasn't pressured into giving the blurb, let's see what he says. It is rare to find a debut author so liberated from the polite conventions of the creative writing classroom. Craig Jordan Baker writes with such mischief and narrative daring, like Eric Morecambe, gripping us by the collar and telling us all the right stories, but not necessarily in the right order. A 1945 novel by a writer who was born in County Cork to Jewish, Lithuanian, and Swedish parents. Hello! And lived most of her life in North London, married to a psychiatrist. Oh my God. Betty Miller. I mean, the name couldn't be more common, but the author bio, holy smokes. On the Side of the Angels. Capuchin Classics, they're out of print. I managed to find this for an affordable price. I've read one others in this series that I really loved, and that's why I bought it. I kind of bought it without knowing anything about the book, and it's set in World War I. That's pretty much all I need to know. The Irish literary scene is becoming more and more diversified, and toward that end, I would love to actually fit this in because it's really short. This Hostel Life by Melatu Oche Okori. It is about migrant women in an Irish direct provision hostel. I do know for a fact that Covery is a big fan of this book. I bought it, maybe, was it Simon Savage? I forget how I found out about it originally. It's been sitting on my shelf for a while. And it is one that I could fit in around the edges. Another classic, Molly Keane, also known as M.J. Farrell, Mad Puppets Town. It's really hard to get these green Virago modern classics. This one, it must be a reprint I could get. And it's set in the early 1900s. Farrell/Keane was born in County Kildare in 1904. She died in 1996. This was originally published in 1931. Don't need to know anymore, but what a title, Mad Puppetstown. I read a collection of Irish short stories, and I am not going to take the time, I didn't think to look it up. So I'm going to put the cover image here because I'm not organized. So it would be a great selection for the Irish Readathon. And I did it on audio, and then I loved the audio so much that I bought the book. And I will at some point reread it. But two of the women writers that were featured there, I bought other short story collections by them. One is by Lucy Caldwell, Multitudes. And the other is by Eilish Ní Gwynny. Thank you to one of my subscribers who helped me pronounce this name. The Shelter of Neighbors. What a gorgeous book. I have to get to this soon. Okay, do you think that's enough to keep me busy? I might be reading Irish Lit for the rest of 2021. Wouldn't that be a happy problem? Thanks for watching.